This is Duke University.
So here's what I think about the way the international media, the US media, covers China. I think they exaggerate at both ends. I think they often exaggerate some of the things that are bad about China. They make them seem even worse than they are. That's probably true. But I think they also exaggerate some of the things that are good about China or interesting about China as well. I think it cuts both ways. I mean, how many stories have you read about China is going to take over the world in this way and dominate the world in this way? And I think if you look at opinion polls in this country, the latest Pew opinion poll suggests that 45% of the US population already thinks that China is the biggest economy in the world. And that tells you something about the way that the media here reports China. We exaggerate its achievements into being bigger than they actually are. So I don't think it's a kind of linear thing where China's reputation in the world is tarnished because the US media just lingers on the bad things in Chinese society. I think that they also, as journalists, our motto is to exaggerate and simplify. I think we do that at both ends of the spectrum, on the good things and on the bad things. But on the bad things, these are real things that happen to Chinese citizens that people are reporting on. These are real activists who are being thrown in jail. These are real writers and intellectuals who are being thrown in jail or kicked out of their jobs. These are real lawyers who are defending human rights cases, who are being victimized or beaten up. These are not things that the US media is making up. These are the kind of uglier realities of the way that political power is expressed in China. And there's no real way of getting around that. It's not the messenger, it's the message. You can have all the kind of celebrations and big 2008 Olympic ceremonies and all the advertising you want in Times Square. That can't get you away from the harsh realities of the way that the political system does sometimes work on many of the more awkward people in China. And actually, the slightly depressing thing is that if we'd had this conversation 5 years ago, you could make the case that while China is still an authoritarian system, it's getting more open. That the experience of Chinese people today is actually of a society that's much freer than it was 20 years ago. That would have been absolutely a valid argument 5 years ago. But in the last 5 years, there's been a whole series of crackdowns on the internet, on activists, on writers, and intellectuals that have actually, in an odd way, made it a more closed system. And Xi Jinping has accentuated some of that tendency as well in the last year or so. So it's actually hard to make the case that things are working out for the better in the long run as well. Actually, things have got a little bit even darker in China in the last few years. I think you're seeing that in some of the reporting about China.